Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court of the United States is willing to do something that House Republicans have no courage to do. This is so amazing. Okay, I'm actually happy. SCOTUS has screwed this country consistently on a number of issues, but if they pull this off, it's going to be massive. Today, the court heard oral arguments over a Mississippi law that allows mail-in ballots received after Election Day to be counted. And the court seemed absolutely poised and ready to overturn it. You can usually predict how the court will rule by the line of questioning they use. That's how I knew they were going to rule against Trump on the tariffs. Because when they start asking questions with a certain frame, you know that's how they are going to make that decision. So today they did the same thing with election integrity. And I must say, if you live in Mississippi and you are a conservative, who are you voting for? Because why is your state allowing votes that come in after Election Day, mail-in votes, to count up to 5 days receipt? Like, that's bizarre to me. You know, you expect that from Washington State, Oregon, the Somali Republic of Minnesota. You expect that from Afghanistan and New York. You expect that from these liberal cesspools of corruption. You never expect that from Mississippi, You don't look at Kentucky and go, yeah, that's a state that should have a law that allows mail-in ballots to count after Election Day. But I guess that's what you guys are doing in Mississippi, down there in the Bible Belt. You're not reading your Bibles. How many verses do you need to read about thieves? Democrats steal elections. You should know this by now. They move like the thieves the Bible warns us about. They steal, they kill, they destroy. They are agents of the devil. So here's the article from the Washington Post. The Supreme Court appears ready to limit mail-in ballots ahead of the midterms. That's what's critical about this. We have an election that's very crucial coming up in November. A majority of justices seemed ready to side with arguments by Republicans and libertarians who told the court that federal election law preempts Mississippi from counting ballots that arrive up to 5 days after polls close. Now, of course, this is, a case relating to Mississippi, but nationwide implications, because more than 14 states, and a lot of them are swing states, allow grace periods of days or weeks. In California, it's longer. In Colorado, it's longer. Mississippi is like, we can do 5 days, which is still wrong. Election day should just be election day, not election week, year, season. No, just election day. So here is a summary of what the court kind of, was leaning towards.
The justices are wrestling with a question about whether states can count ballots received after Election Day in a case that could have an impact in nearly 30 states that allow some kind of grace period. The RNC is challenging a Mississippi law that allows ballots to be counted up to 5 business days after Election Day if they're postmarked by Election Day. Justice Alito was among the biggest skeptics during Monday's arguments.
Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day, and they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place.
But Justice Kagan questioned the impact of that logic on practices like early voting.
It seems to me it's a rule that prevents early voting, because you're basically saying there are 2 things that have to happen, and they have to happen on Election Day.
Meaning the casting of the vote and the receipt of that vote. But attorney Paul Clement, representing the RNC, said the argument is that the process be consummated or completed by Election Day. A number of the justices also raised the issue of the potential for the appearance of fraud when votes arrive and are counted after Election Day. And there wind up being shifts in vote totals and how that may impact public confidence.
Okay, so Justice Alito, saying what we all know to be true, that if something has day in it, it implies that it's specific to that time, to that date, to that day. It can't be Election Day and then you allow ballots to come in 3 weeks after and count like a ballot that showed up on that day. Why would it be a day and not like a period of time? Like, instead of November 3rd or November 5th or November 8th or whatever, you do November 1st till November 10th. Then it's election week. Then it's election 10 days. Then it's election period. But when it's day, when it's a specific number and date, that implies that the intention of the founders was to have a singular day and that nothing should happen at least after those days. If you want to go to the extreme, nothing should happen before. Everyone should vote in person on Election Day. But I understand exceptions. I get, you have people in the military overseas. I get that. I get disabilities. Mail-in ballots are easier for people who can't walk. Certainly, I understand that. But if you're an able-bodied adult, I feel like the restriction should be you have to vote on Election Day. And then we have so many early voting mechanisms anyways. What I thought was interesting is, this lawyer, Paul Clement, representing the Republican Party, the court caught a very interesting moment. The lawyer arguing against mail-in ballots that said there couldn't be fraud in Chicago. This is how I'm literally fumbling over words because it just doesn't sound real. Like, he suggested that there could never be fraud in Chicago.
You have 8 states that don't even require a postmark. And there is nothing in Mississippi's theory that turns on the existence or the non-existence of a postmark. And that's probably a good thing because the Post Service has made clear that they don't even postmark all of the mail. And postmarks have their own problems. I mean, the main mailbox, post office in Chicago stays open 24/7. So when all the other polls close in Illinois or every other state at 8 p.m., the post office is still open till midnight. Now, I'm not here to say that there could ever be voting fraud in Chicago, but the possibility that there's a 4-hour window where people could go get their ballots, absentee ballots, postmarked after all of the returns are in, and they know that, this is the election where these things could turn the result. That does not seem entirely
So is your argument?
Yeah, slight iteration on my point. He was making fun of the fact that, people would even think there couldn't be fraud in Chicago. So it was sarcasm. But you heard Amy Coney Barrett laughing because, of course, there's fraud in Chicago. That's all there is there. And what I thought was interesting, a very interesting point for Sonia Sotomayor to bring up, she brought this point up to defend mail-in voting, saying maybe we should have another president now because Florida's military ballots came in after Election Day in the 2000 Bush v. Gore election. And the lawyer basically said that's a red herring. Now, that's a fair point. Let's agree that she's right. Isn't that more of a reason to then restrict mail-in ballots to only people who absolutely need it? We're reading that an entire election was switched because of the delayance of mail-in ballots. Great, okay. We don't want the delay, but the fact that it's happening with the military sounds to me like a super exception. Like, she just went to the extreme to pick an example for why mail-in ballots are needed. Oh, see, the military used them and they showed up late. Yeah, people in the military. So, if you're an adult, 28 years old, and you live in a city, and the nearest polling location to you is 5 minutes away, should you be getting a mail-in ballot as though you were in the military and on an Air Force carrier or Navy Air Force carrier or aircraft carrier? Like, that's the perplexing logic they have here. Like, the idea should be, oh, only people in the military should use ballots, and the exceptions should be because of their special circumstance. But they want like a blue-haired freak, 35 years old, who lives in a cubicle in New York to have the privilege of voting by mail as someone who is on a submarine. Like, they don't realize how stupid that sounds. So yeah, of course we should have exceptions for mail-in ballots, but, you know, they should be limited. And people get it confused. They think that Democrats, when they try to cheat in elections, they actually, like, you know, make ballots up and there's no names attached to those ballots. It's a big operation. It's not as simple as that. Yeah, sure, they can manufacture votes. We saw it in Fulton County. We had mail-in ballots that had no folds, which is illogical. It makes no sense. If a ballot was mailed, it had to have been folded at some point to get on the envelope. So that would suggest it was manufactured at the voting facility. And all of them voted for Biden, of course, in the 2020 election. But the point is, that exists, but the bigger issue is you have voter rolls with unlimited names. People that have died, people that have moved out of state, that's the bigger pot. Like, yeah, the dead people is objectionable because you hear it and it's like, whoa, this person's been dead for 80 years. How did they vote in the last election? That's crazy, right? It sounds crazy. But the real problem, the massive scale operation they have going on, is with people who left the state. So if a bunch of people left California, the reason California remains everlastingly blue, and it seems like their voter base is always increasing, is because they never delete voter rolls. They never delete the people that leave, at least not in time. Or they'll delete them from the active list and then just like transfer them to the inactive list. We all know when someone moves out of a state, it's usually permanent. So why are they on an inactive list? Inactive should be someone who has not renewed their registration. Yeah, if you move, they'll put your name in the inactive, and then, you know, right before the election, if they need you, you're suddenly active again, and then they send a mail-in ballot in your name to some organization, and that organization, you know, helps you out, fills it up for the Democrats, of course, and then all of a sudden you're voting for Democrats, even after you move to Nevada as a California migrant. So that's the problem here. It's an operation, and mail-in ballots are a critical component. The other are your voter rolls. The machine stuff, yeah, it's true. Like, the machines have these, you know, ways you can access. If you have the password, they're connected to the internet. They're not supposed to be. Those vulnerabilities are there. But the bigger problem, in my opinion, it's the simple stuff. It's mail-in ballots and it's voter rolls. Look at California. In the 2024 election, after Trump had already won, Republicans were declared the winners of the Senate. There were a few House seats, and it came down to California. And they spent like an entire month, if you guys remember this, like an entire month from November to December, counting like, I think 5,000 ballots in total across 3 different districts. And the Republicans, of course, were winning at first, but as time went on, they lost every single one of those races that was being dragged on. So what does that tell you about what's going on? That's how it works. And it's because they were getting mail-in ballots from, God knows where, Imaginaryville. Thankfully, the House ended up being decided by some races in Colorado with Gabe Evans and some other seats in different places like Illinois, New York, I'm sure some districts in New Jersey. And so Republicans already had a favorable map by the time California wanted to pull their shenanigan. But I do think the reason they determined to ensure the Democrats took those 3 seats is because Republicans ended up having like a 5-seat advantage, which is not anything you can really work with, especially when you consider how many Republicans are consistently voting against the interest of their constituents. So if you can eliminate them from getting a 8-seat or 10-seat advantage and only having, a 4-seat advantage, that's perfect. Democrats are fine with that. That's why they pulled that off in California, even though it seemed worthless, pointless, because Republicans had already won. So this is what I'm saying. It's an entire operation. And going into the midterms, Trump is constantly screaming. He said it again today. He said he's pegging Homeland Security funding to election integrity.
So I'm tying Homeland Security into voter identification with picture and proof of citizenship in order to vote. And those 2 items are the most important thing having to do with Homeland Security. So it should be part of the Homeland Security bill. And I'm requesting that the Republican senators do that immediately. You don't have to take a fast vote. Don't worry about Easter going home. In fact, make this one for Jesus, okay? Make this one for Jesus. That's what I tell him. That would be a damn good thing. The most important part of Homeland Security is voter ID and proof of citizenship. Nobody can vote on Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship. And you can't have Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship. So we're tying them together.
Okay. So here's the thing, and this is me just being honest here. Republicans are cowards. They're not going to get it done. This is the sad, unfortunate reality. Senator John Kennedy has suggested using the reconciliation process to get it done, but Republican Senate leadership says, but the lawyers, the lawyers stopped us. We can't do it. They've never tried, but, the lawyers already stopped them from trying, I suppose. No, it's just an excuse to not do it. So they won't do it, which is sad. And it's annoying because you look at the situation. ICE agents are now being used at airports, and the right wing is celebrating. All Trump supporters are celebrating. Like, yes, what are we doing here? The reason Trump is having to send ICE agents to airports is because Republicans refuse to take power in a true and meaningful way from the Democrats. This country is less safe because Democrats have decided not to fund the DHS. And Republicans have a majority. They can change the Senate rules on the filibustering, and they can immediately fund the DHS. They won't do it. They will not do it. And that's where we're at. So we're like, yeah, ICE agents at airports. Okay, well, Democrats forced this situation, right? Democrats wanted ICE to not deport as many people, which, in all but announcing it, the administration has technically, withdrawn from deportations. And they now say, only criminals, we'll only look at the criminal records. Okay. So Democrats got, to a large extent what they wanted by shutting down the DHS. And now they won't reopen the DHS. It's crazy. So when Democrats want something, they literally shut everything down. Republicans need election integrity. It helps them. Like if you're John Thune, it helps you. Because without cheating, Democrats really don't have a chance. without mail-in ballots, without non-citizens being allowed to vote, they have no chance. And they still won't do it. They still won't do it. They still will not do it. But Congress will probably vote for $200 billion for Iran. Like, that's how their priorities are. Yeah, we'll do all that. Like, we'll fight in every foreign war we can find. Lindsey Graham will promote all that. But when it comes to getting the SAVE Act through, oh gosh, that's where we have to draw the line. Because we can't use the reconciliation process for that. Okay, so we can't use the reconciliation process to get the SAVE Act through, which literally saves the country from fraudulent elections, but we can use it to fund the Pentagon so they have 200 extra billion, as if they don't already have a lot of money, to prosecute the war we're in. Okay, that's how priorities work. You know, why can't it be transactional? Why can't Trump say, hey, Lindsey Graham, hey, Mitch McConnell, I've said this before. Why can't he call these guys up and say, look, I will literally give you the regime change you guys have been salivating over, just desiring for decades of your lives, your meaningless existences. But in return, you have to give me election integrity so Democrats don't cheat their way into power and then impeach me. That should be the conversation. Because now we're relying on the Supreme Court, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're doing their part. Apart from the tariff decision, the Supreme Court has been spot on during this second Trump term. They have allowed Trump to act as a unitary executive. They have not allowed, these 1 trillion alphabet agencies to get away with doing whatever they want. They have reeled in the deep state. The problem isn't even the deep state anymore. If you think about it, like, the president fully controls the executive branch. You cannot make an argument that any part of the Trump government is like undermining him, because the Supreme Court has largely prevented them from doing so, from acting unilaterally. Whether it was the Chevron deference decision that they made, restricting the ability of agencies to make rules that read as laws and are enforceable as laws, and creating their own courts to enforce the law. Only Congress can do that. That literally consolidates power with the actual 3 legitimate branches and their respective heads. Congress, the executive, the judiciary. Like, all of those decisions from the Supreme Court got us to this point where, yeah, we do have a more powerful president, but the Republicans are dropping the ball. They refuse to codify any executive orders. Well, they might say they did it one time, but I don't see it. Like the favored nation drug policy that Trump signed last year. Still haven't done anything with that. That's not even law. Trump suggested sending insurance subsidies to people's accounts as opposed to health insurance companies. They haven't done anything. Like, this is what they haven't codified it. This is the problem. So, yeah, I'm glad the Supreme Court is making or heading to this decision, because it truly is transformational. Like you read there, over 15 states have laws that allow mail-in ballots received after the election to count. And these are some of the most critical states in the elections. Talking swing states, battleground states, mostly blue states, but Mississippi as well. So overturning that would be transformational, truly, because that's a critical mechanism for cheating. If suddenly voter ID and proof of citizenship were required on top of banning mail-in ballots from being received after Election Day, everything would just work. Everything would work. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Well, I'll keep tabs on this case. I think I remember seeing it while it was in the lower courts. But typically when the Supreme Court argues, oh, by the way, no, it's 29 states. What am I talking about? No, it's not 15 states. It's 29 states that allow counting of mail-in ballots that are received after Election Day. Wow. 29. That's a majority. It wasn't 15. I don't know where I got 15 from. It's 29 states. Just wanted to let you know that. Congress passed the SAVE Act. Yeah, I hope so. I hope they do that. But we're dealing with Republicans here. So Republicans think fulfilling their constituents' desires is to post, angry messages about how Democrats are stopping things. Okay, well, it's not why you can't get anything done. It's because you just refuse to do the right thing. 29 too many, exactly. That's every swing state, essentially, right? The ones that don't are, I don't know, maybe Alabama. Mississippi does it, of course, unfortunately. But I assume that the ones that don't are just all the other red states. But if every other, blue state and battleground state does it, that's where it gets disgusting. Because if Democrats need votes, okay, well, Election Day is now open season. Send in your mail-in ballots and we'll count them. Yeah, I know, Mike. I don't know why Mississippi is allowing ballots received after Election Day to be counted. I don't know. I found out today because I knew that this case was going on, but I thought it was like against California or Illinois or some other, like Arizona or something. Like, I didn't know it was against Mississippi. Like, that's wild to me. That's what's crazy. So, Lou, don't ban anyone, man. Lou Valentino came in with his dictator, communist hammer, and he wants to be a dictator. That's wild. First message in the chat is he wants to ban everyone. Both parties keep blackmailing each other. Well, actually, I'll touch on that. The fact that Republicans know Democrats cheat, but they won't do anything about it, tells me this is one of those uniparty arrangements where Republicans let the Democrats have their cheating operations across the country, and in return, Democrats let the Republicans into power at some points or promise something. I don't know who benefits more from this arrangement, because the right-wing base never gets anything. We never get anything from Republicans, but Democrat voters, man, they get their trans surgeries for minors. We can't get Republicans to force Democrats to ban the same surgeries for minors, but Democrats were able to get it into federal practice when they controlled Congress. This is how twisted it is. I don't get it. It's similar to when Republicans refused to redistrict correctly, and now we beg Democrats not to redistrict aggressively, but they're doing it anyways. Trump started a redistricting war, and I said, yes, finally, get all the Republican states to redistrict correctly. Make sure it's reciprocal. Massachusetts has 7 million people, 0 Republican congressional representation. Indiana has the same population almost, 2 Democrats. That's not fair, and they're both as red and as blue as the other, right? By percentage. Trump won it by 60%. In Indiana, Kamala won Massachusetts by the same 60. So you would expect similar representation, but no. Republicans have 2 Democrats in Indiana representing them, which makes no sense. So Trump starts the redistricting war, and I'm like, yes, finally, this is what he should have done a long time ago. Force Republicans to do the right thing, be reciprocal. Republicans kind of start, and now Democrats have taken it to another level. They have wrecked Republicans when it comes to redistricting. California has erased 5 seats. This has forced Kevin Kiley, an incumbent Republican, to defect. He's now an independent in all but name. Well, no, in name but all, whatever that means. He's still a Republican, but now he's just, he has resigned from the caucus. That's the problem. He's now an independent because he's likely to lose. Okay, Republicans have a few extra seats in Texas. Cool. But Democrats, somehow, some way, even after court orders saying the process by which they forced mid-decade redistricting in Virginia was unconstitutional, they did it. They broke laws, they got it done. Now they're getting closer to redistricting in Virginia. This is the problem we're talking about, man. It's like Republicans just can't take it to its natural destination. At least with Trump, if he's going to do something that people might disagree with, he'll go all the way in, He'll go in to Venezuela and take Maduro. Like, he's not just going to have, the Navy around. He'll go all the way in, and he'll take the risk. Him going to war with Iran, he'll just start blowing everyone up. It just feels like the Republican establishment, these fossils, the Mitch McConnells of the world, these guys just refuse to take things to their natural conclusion. Like, if Democrats are cheating, then you stop them from cheating by doing this, such and such. They might tell you, yeah, we know that the Democrats are cheating, but they will never do what's necessary. Why am I, you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know why I'm wasting my breath trying to explain the situation, but you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's redistrict. Okay, and now the Democrats are beating them at that. Let's reverse the culture war, but they're afraid to ban mutilation. They're afraid to do anything. Let's work on healthcare and come up with a better plan than Obamacare. Okay, but now they're extending Obamacare and letting the Democrats have their continued subsidies, not to individuals like Trump suggested, but to the companies, the insurance firms. Really? Okay. It's annoying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got the stream done, so let's pray for the Supreme Court. By the way, Markwayne Mullin just got confirmed by the Senate on a 53-41 vote to be the next Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. So he is now in that role. We'll see how he does. I hope he does a good job. But Lord, I pray for the Supreme Court that they continue on this streak. Wow. They continue making good decisions, decent decisions on a more consistent basis. In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, you have to pray for your judges, man. The judges are like representatives of God. If you think about what's one of the most important things about God, it's justice, his execution of the law. I mean, that's literally the biblical story. God created an ordered world with laws, and we broke them, and then he created a redemption plan to fulfill justice, but also give us mercy, grace. So judges on earth, in any position, they're important. I don't believe anyone voted for Mitch McConnell. No, they did. Come on. Are you kidding me? Kentucky definitely did vote for him. There was a time where someone like Mitch McConnell made sense. To a large extent, not to a certain extent, to a large extent, I respect Mitch McConnell. He is who he is. He knows he's a neocon. He doesn't lie about that. He is a globalist, but like a conservative, globalist. He believes in this country getting ripped off in trade. He believes all those things. And he'll do whatever it takes to get his way. Mitch McConnell was willing to destroy Senate norms to make sure that Obama did not get the last appointment to the Supreme Court that would have changed the trajectory of this country for a long time. So I give credit to Mitch McConnell. Like he told Barack Obama, you're not going to get Merrick Garland in. We're not even going to do a hearing. And I think that was great. I think that was, he knows who he is. He loves war. He loves those things. It's like, that's how he gets a boner at his ripe age of 99. I don't know how old he is, but that's how he enjoys life that way. Congress needs vetting. Yeah. The thing is, it's the people that have the most money that are going to win in the general election, but also in the primary. Because if you think about it, like the person you're going to hear most about is the person with the most money to get volunteers, to advertise, get on TV, get on Facebook or YouTube or whatever they do. And usually that person ends up being like Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw. They end up being someone who is corrupt. But the donor class is so smart, they often get like a really good package, like a good package deal. Hey, he's a Navy SEAL, he lost his eye, let's just give him a chance. And he's like a crook, but you don't really know that because he was packaged so well. That's what most politicians are. Like, it happens on the left as well. We see the left as a monolith, just the same way they see every conservative as a monolith. You're all one person and you all agree with Trump on anything and everything and whatever he does. Like the right wing would call every Democrat a communist, even though Chuck Schumer is demonstrably different from AOC in belief. Even Hakeem Jeffries is different from Mamdani, But, we all think the other side is like the same. The dynamic on the left is similar, right? You have like these Democrat socialists of America, and they are running in these races, and they always get beat by guys that are more funded by the big bucks, Silicon Valley and whoever else is left on the Democrat donor side now. On the right wing, you have real patriots, people that want election integrity, and they want to actually transform the culture and restore integrity from a local level. And they're getting beat by the people that are funded by the defense industrial complex. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good night.